Maeve, can you tell me a little bit about your mother, Rose
Hmm.
Rosenfeld?
You jumped right in. um, that's a hard one already. And I don't think I would have been able to answer your question just a couple years ago. I would have said, fuck you for asking me about her. But I don't know. Um, I feel like I can at least tell you that I care about my mother now. That I've learned in like the last couple of years to well, I've been more curious about her. So I found out just recently that you had been collecting her archive. So when you contacted me, I was very interested to see what you'd found because I hadn't seen much of her work. It wasn't part of my life growing up. So seeing that has been it's been really powerful to me to see like her creative energy. I don't have many memories of her. Well, as you know, as we've been doing the research and all, I was only 5 when she died, and some people expect that I might have at least some kind of glancing, like glimmers of her, floating around me from being a little girl, but it's not the case. And um, my grandparents would provide memories for me, would tell me stories of, oh, when you had your 3rd birthday party, she did this or that and baked the cake in the shape of an elephant. You know, little details that I've been able to refashion into memories about my mother. Um, but and you won't find this. Well, I don't know how to introduce this idea, but I've been trying to recreate memories of her. Just in the last 2 years, I kind of embarked on a journey to um, get in touch with her, and uh, everywhere I go, I try to imagine her there with me, and to kind of see what comes out of that. Um, and part of the reason for that is when I was, I think, 16 or 17, I decided that I hated her. Rose was the worst thing that had happened to me. I shouldn't say that, but I'd I'd been given some clothing that she had worn, and I'd treasured it until then in like a secret way. And when I was about 16, I just completely tossed it out in the yard and burned it, and decided I hated her. Wanted nothing to do with her memory or her existence. I think I might have even had an early sketchbook of some of her work from, oh God, you don't want to hear this at all, but that went into the pile, and I don't remember what was in it. I imagine you you would like to know, but
I sure would.
um, it must have been very early because it was just a composition book, just with some pen and ink sketches. That's all I remember, although I know she doesn't usually work in that medium. Um, yeah.
Maeve, tell me a little bit about your dad. What's your relationship like with him?
Jasper. Uh, well, we had dinner a couple months ago. He flew me out to Marfa, Texas. He's like I don't know what he's doing out there. I thought that scene was over, but there he is. I think he has like one of those little Airstream trailers, which are so cool. I don't whatever. He brought me out. It's beautiful. It was a beautiful West Texas hot summer night, and yeah, I spent a couple days with him there, and he seems to be the person that I always expected him to be, although I didn't know him until I was a young adult. He's been the same kind of figure in my life since then. Abrupt, brash, But we managed to get along, and I think the topic of my mother's usually off the table, but he's always very interested in, or he's grown more interested, I'll say, in my career, and seems to care more and more, and so that's...
Maeve, a lot of scholars have written about how your mother's relationship to the art world as a female artist was pretty problematic. I was wondering, what's your relationship to the arts? Are you sort of going to be pursuing that career path, or something else?
Well, as you know, I have a small, up and growing, hopefully, a collection of musical compositions that I've been creating just in the past couple of years. Some of them in honor of my mother, in the sense that I typically write lyrics that are about women and tell stories about women. But I think, well, I would personally feel both indebted to my mother for being a figure, like a female figure in the art world, but I feel like that's a timely in all kinds of senses. Like, she was a pioneer there, and we still need pioneers. I don't consider myself one, but I think the contributions of all kinds of women to the art, all visual, musical arts, I mean, it's something that drives my work, and I think I can't quite say that I learned that from her, but I hope maybe it's in my blood somehow, that she may have not directly imparted that to me, but it's like in the fiber of my being.
Maeve, I know that you've brought some things here today to share. Would you feel comfortable showing those items to me?
Sure. I should say that the things I have to share are recreations of memories, or constructed memories, vis-a-vis like the destruction of my mother's things when I was a teenager, and maybe brash, much like my father at the time, just threw them out. But I've tried to refashion a lot of those memories, and so I have this was my grandfather's, the good Jewish man that he was.
I'm gonna zoom in.
Kept a box with a Bible in it in our house, and well, I haven't kept the Bible, as you can see, but the box has been useful. Let's see. Should I just...
Yeah, whatever feels right for you.
Well, since you last asked about my father, he wore these, not these, but sunglasses like this in the 80s, and after I first met him, and had seen some photos of him, I decided I wanted a pair, and so those have been in here for that reason, because they remind me of him. This is a book of matches from the restaurant where my parents got in that famous fight. I don't know if you remember, from like the very early 90s, and my father actually hit my mother in the restaurant, and the police were called and things like that. I didn't find out about that until I was much older, but went back to the restaurant at some point, and some morbid memento, but it keeps I don't know, it's a part of their lives that was very much told. I don't know why I have that. This is an acorn. that I found that when I visited my mother's grave a couple of years ago. This is something I took from that. This is off a bottle of champagne that, well, it was a bottle of champagne that I opened when I first, when I got first notified that I'd been invited to tour with Anais Nin, not Anais Nin, Anais Mitchell, the musician. I was going to open for her, and I popped this bottle of champagne in honor of that. And that's a piece of bark. It's from a cedar tree from the Tetons. And so I told you that my father, Jasper, when he wants to see me, he'll fly me out to wherever he is, and this was one of the places that we met. He had been spending some time there, and I grabbed this on a hike that we took one afternoon. And these are, well, I took these from Glacier National Park in Montana. Shouldn't really take things from the national parks, but I did. This was several years, 2-3 years ago. I went there for the first time. I was just road tripping across the country by myself, and this was I spent some time in the park, and on one of the lakes one evening. I don't know. I just felt very strongly that my mother was communing with me in the place, and I felt as this is probably the first time that had happened to me, so this was like the beginning of my journey to kind of recollect memories of her. And I felt very strongly that, like, in the park at that time, like, as I watched, like, the tourists move through and the glaciers are melting and these things, like, I felt very strongly that how my mother continued to produce art, that her interest and like being a woman in the art world might have transcended into thinking about, like, similar ways, like that a history of women's oppression is mirrored by, like, the oppression and the subjugation of the natural world. And so or maybe that's something that's in my blood again, this kind of as I was there and kind of thinking that place won't be there as it is anymore, and thinking about my mother's art and, like, the place of, like, where that's going and its permanence and impermanence. I don't know.
And I guess she spent 76 to 78 in the Southwest, so
yeah,
and influenced by that landscape a little bit.
Yeah, you can see that more in her work than these places. I mean, I'm just imposing a wish that I might have for her work if she had lived on. But yeah.
Maeve, thank you so much for speaking with me. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Yeah.